Hey everybody, welcome back. We're continuing our reading of The Sword of Allah. We are on page 92. Let's pick up where we left off. We were dealing with when Abu Sufyan is telling the Quraysh about whoever goes inside the mosque or his home will be safe. Okay? Submit to him and be safe. Whoever enters my house shall be safe. This led to an uproar in the crowd. And how many do you think could fit into your house? The people asked with sarcasm. Abu Sufyan then added, Whoever stays in his house and locks his door shall be safe. Whoever remains in the mosque shall be safe. So anyone outside, you're ready for a scrapping. This appeased the crowd, but could not appease his wife Hind. She sprang at him like a cat, slapped his face, and caught him by his mustaches. Kill the fat old fool! She screamed at the crowd. He has turned away from us. Since Hind was no lightweight, the experience must have been a painful one for Abu Sufyan. However, he managed to shake her off and walked away to his house. So, he now has to, flip everything. His relationship is in trouble. The Quraysh, who at first liked him, are looking at him, changing his positions. He's going through his own little cleansing, is he not? The Muslim expected that there would be some opposition to their entry into Mecca. They could not assume that it would be an entirely peaceful operation, although the Prophet hoped that blood would not be shed, so they have to prepare either way. With hardened anti-Muslims like Ikram and Sufwan, you could never tell. The plan of the Prophet was, therefore, designed to conquer Mecca as a military operation. So you have to really look at it strategically. Mecca lies in the Valley of Abraham and is surrounded and dominated by black rugged hills which rise in places to over 1,000 feet above the valley floor. The town was then approached over 4 routes, each one going through a pass in the hills. So we got 4 routes, and we got 4 people. We got Zubair, Ali, Khalid, and Abu Ubaidah. These routes came in from the northwest, almost north, the southwest, the south, and the northeast. The Prophet divided his army into 4 columns. Okay, so 4 columns, and there's 4 passageways, 1 to advance on each route. The main column, which was commanded by Abu Ubaidah, so he's the first one, and with which the Prophet traveled in person, would enter Mecca along with the main Medina route. So the Prophet's going with Ubaidah. From the northwest via Az-Zakir. The second column under Zubair would enter from the southwest through a pass west of the Hill of Kuda. The third column under Ali would enter from the south via Kuday, and the fourth under Khalid would enter from the north via Lit and Kadma. Okay, so this was the map essentially, fam. Look at it. Very helpful. Okay, so wow. Khalid is the 4th, essentially, right? He's the 4th one. The advance consisted of convergent thrusts aimed at a single central objective, which would have the effect of chopping up the enemy into small portions and also force dispersion on him. That's a good point. So they're all going to come in from these 4 parts, and then since all of those people in Mecca or in one location, they have to separate out to fight those different sides. So they would be able to concentrate for battle on any one axis of advance. Okay, so they're not just gonna take one force and only go to like Khalid's, ranks or just Ali's. They're gonna spread out, which will give different ones an advantage of dealing with each individual scenario. And then when one defeats the other, it can go to the aid of the other one. Smart. Moreover, even if the enemy succeeded in holding up the advance on some axes, the attackers would have other axes on which to break through, thus enjoy better prospects of success. So if one axis wing fails, then you got an opening. All approaches were used to meet this requirement of military tactics. This was also done to prevent the escape of the Quraysh. Smart too, because remember on the map it had those 4 areas, so 2 on each side, so they're coming out, they're expanding out, while the others are going in, right? It's quite interesting. He also ordered that there would be no killing of the wounded, no pursuit of fugitives, and no slaying of captives. Now, it used to be the killing of the wounded. Somebody would walk around the battlefield and then put out whoever was struggling to survive. I believe that was quite common. The entry into Mecca took place on January 11th, 630, the 20th of Ramzan, 8 Hijri. It proved a peaceful and bloodless operation except in the sector of Khalid. Uh-oh, so he's having a tough time. Ikram and Sufwan had got together a band of dissidents from the Quraysh and other tribes and decided to make the Muslims fight for victory. Okay, so Ikram and Sufwan leading the way, and then they went up and got the people who didn't want to submit. So they're going to rebel. They met Khalid's column at Kandama, and this was a new and strange experience for Khalid. Well, yeah, the two enemy leaders who were now opposing him in battle had been his dearest friends. Think about him. He was fighting on the other side, did a successful job on some points, right? Gets change of heart, gets called the Sword of Allah by the Prophet, and now he has to fight against his friends. It's a difficult position, right? Ikram and Sufwan, and the latter was also the husband of Khalid's sister. Right? Fakta. However, Islam cancelled all relationships and friendships of the ignorant, and no one who was not a Muslim could have a claim on a Muslim for old time's sake. Well, that's interesting. The Quraysh opened up with their bows and drew their swords, and this was all that Khalid was waiting for. He charged the Quraysh position, and after a short, sharp clash, the Quraysh were driven back. Okay, so he pushed them back. 12 of the Quraysh were killed at a loss of only 2 Muslims. Wow, different numbers, wow. Ikram and Sufwan fled from the scene of the encounter. Oh, okay, so they're outie. They're retreating. When the Prophet came to know of this action and the number of infidels killed, he was displeased with Khalid. He had wished to avoid bloodshed, and knowing Khalid's violent nature, he feared that Khalid may himself have brought on a military engagement. Oh, thinking because, like, remember it was 12 of the Quraysh compared to the 2 Muslims. Now, there's a cool dynamic to that because it's like he gave an onslaught to the enemy, but by doing that, he did show some military prowess and some glory. However, it may have, for this particular sensitive moment in time, it may have been excessive. To the point of, you know, where you're going to go and strategy-wise. So, he has a point. Khalid was duly sent for and asked to account for his action. His explanation, however, was accepted by the Prophet, who agreed that Khalid had done the right thing. He had, after all, merely hit back. Oh, okay, so in retaliation, defense instead of offense. Makes the difference, right? Because if you were doing it offensively, then you would be the one antagonizing. It was in the nature of Khalid that whenever he struck very hard. If you're gonna do it. Right? There was no moderation in the character of the man. My mom once said, if you're gonna hit me, you better knock me out. She didn't say that to me, but she said that once to somebody, and I was like, oh, I get it, right? My mom also told me that if you're ever fighting somebody, you need to fight like they're trying to kill you, because they might just kill you. So don't fight thinking that they won't hurt you. You know, you have to fight like they're trying to kill you, which is true, because there's countless videos that show what happened when you get knocked out. So many people drop kick you in the head and can give you a severe concussion and kill you if they stomp you out and knock you out, right? So don't let them knock you out. You gotta stand on your feet. You engage like it's everything. So I understand. As soon as Mecca was occupied by the Muslims, the Prophet went to the Kaaba and circumambulated the house of God 7 times. This was a great moment in the life of Muhammad, peace be upon him. It was more than 7 years since he had fled as a fugitive from Mecca with the Quraysh at his heels, thirsting for his blood. Muhammad was no longer the fugitive. He was no longer a voice crying in the wilderness. Muhammad had returned, and he had returned as a master with Mecca at his feet. There you go. There you go. It's quite inspirational, right? You went in as someone who triumphed, persevered. The Quraysh trembled as they waited in the mosque, for they knew the savage nature of Arab vengeance. The Prophet turned and looked at the Quraysh. There was a hushed silence as the assembled populace gazed at him. Ooh, you could probably feel that. It's like, oh, what's the move here? Here's a counterexample to a very similar situation. When when Hernan Cortez was in the capital city, I think it was Tenochtitlan. I hope I got the name right. It's an Aztec name, forgive me. But they were in the center, and the people were getting upset at how there was an alliance forming between the Spaniards and the leader, right? And so they injured him. They threw a rock at his head, I think, of their leader, which was a big deal for them because they literally respected their leaders. And then there was a huge tension about what happens now when Hernan wanted to escape. People were looking like, what's going to happen? Are we going to attack these people? And the Spaniards were like, what are we going to do? And then they got trapped inside one of the pyramids with all the gold, with part of the gold, and they needed to escape. But there's very interesting moments in history where everyone stands still and hears, and that type of energy is quite intense. I'm pretty sure Caesar, at the funeral of his daughter, or when Cicero spoke, very similar situations happen. It shows you that in history, when people can hold still and be quiet and listen to you, whether it's through fear or interest and love, it just shows that you're able to intensify your energy to the point of calming it, and you're channeling that energy to you. It just shows your magnanimity, right? It's quite interesting to think about. "O Quraysh," called the Prophet, "how should I treat you?" "Kindly, O noble brother and son of a noble brother," the crowd replied. "Then go, you're forgiven." That's a cool exchange. How should I treat you? That's a good thing, because not just like, oh, you could just automatically give a pardon, right? You'd be like, I will treat you kind. But I think throughout history, so many despots have said, oh, I'll treat you kind, and then they come forward, they all have their heads on spikes, right? Others do tricks, but that the people asked him and responded in that way to give mercy shows a lot. He didn't offer amnesty off the bat, and he didn't threaten off the bat. It's quite an interesting way to address a crowd with whom you have just entered in and taken over, right? I mean, I doubt many conquerors asked, right? How many ask? He had the respect to ask the people. It shows you that he also had respect for the land as well that was over there. It's quite interesting. And he forgave them.